I want to talk about ghosts, specifically ghosts in the context of work and leadership, because you've got one. You might have more than one. And until you figure out what your ghosts are, what do they want, why are they there, you've got a really problematic situation because you're trying to do good work in the world. You're trying to lead, whether you're a functional leader or an executive or first time in the workforce. You're trying to have an impact. And what we don't realize is that we think we are interacting directly with the world, but we're not. We're interacting in the world through our ghosts. I was talking with a long-term client the other day, and he got some feedback about his ghost from somebody who he had had 500 conversations with, someone he's worked with for years. And in a beautiful moment, this person shared the next level of vulnerable feedback. And he said, look, I think your problem is this other person. So it was a person from the past. I think you're trying to live up to his standards. You're trying to be like him instead of finding your own way, instead of carving out your own style. And my friend kind of stopped in his tracks. The blood came into his face. He felt the realness, the truth of what this person was saying to him. He understood it to be true about himself. Even if he didn't exactly know what to do in that moment, he thought, yeah, that's right. I am trying to do that. This is his ghost, or one of them, where he's trying to lead, he's trying to show up in the world, but from other people's perspective, from the perception of others, there's something off. This is what it's like for other people when we are showing up in the world through our ghosts. We might use the right words, we might be really smart, we might have a ton of experience, but their experience of us is that there's something inauthentic. There's something not real, something not honest. Not that they're lying to us, but there's something not honest in the system. There's something off. And it's that lack of awareness of our ghosts and the lack of resolution with our ghosts that creates that offness. That is exactly what it is. And we almost never talk about this in the context of work or leadership or life. We make this assumption that we are who we are, and maybe we're working on ourselves and maybe we're not. But we operate in the world with this assumption. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, which we shouldn't, that we are who we are. Instead of stepping outside of ourselves and saying, wait a second, maybe there's another personality in the mix here that is actually running the show or part of the show. If you go back into your own history and you take an honest inventory, you will find these ghosts. The obvious place to look for a lot of people is parents. Your mother, your father, maybe a really powerful relative influence in your life, someone who you knew, an aunt or an uncle who was a big influence, or a grandparent could be. But there's an extremely high likelihood, extremely high, like approaching the asymptotic line approaching infinity, extremely high, where you have one of these people literally between you and the world, where you're trying to please or rebel against or solve or heal something about them, something that was unresolved for them in your life. I wrote about this explicitly in Good Authority, in this concept of borrowed authority. It's the same thing, same concept of talking about a ghost. It's a version of our own authority that we don't know we're carrying around, but that is actually operating as us in the world. We're giving it energy, we're giving it life. And the only problem is we don't realize that we're doing it. We don't realize that it's not us actually having the conversation. It's us having the conversation through the ghost, through the filter of some other person from our past. I've worked with thousands of people, huge ballrooms. We used to do this workshop at Refound where we would do this authority work in intensive ways. It was a big thing we did before the pandemic, and we haven't done so much of it since. But every single time the same thing would happen. Everybody would own up really quickly, oh my God, I didn't even realize how much I'm trying to, be like my mom in the way she was, or I'm trying to avoid being like my dad in the way he was, or I was raised in this really strong, maybe religious environment, or in my culture, it was a very certain way that I had to be. And I've assimilated, accumulated, I've been conditioned to behave in this way, and that's not me. And I don't have any space from it. It's not about rejecting your ghosts necessarily, even though ghosts carry a negative connotation. It's about knowing who they are, what they want, what they're trying to tell you. What are they trying to accomplish? And then figuring out, is there something that ghost has that's a form of wisdom that maybe you want to integrate into your style? That's possible. But the lion's share of the work is seeing the ways in which we learned how to be in the world by borrowing the authority of others. We don't have our own self-authority. We're not writing our own story, even though our mind convinces us that we are. We're not. Authenticity is that writing of your own story. And authenticity can only ever be there, obviously enough, if that story isn't being written by your ghosts, or isn't being edited or copywritten or filtered by your ghosts. So this work is essential. No matter what you're doing in your life, whether you're a leader or not, no matter what you do for your work or you don't work at all, whatever you're doing in the world, at whatever level, the most powerful work, the highest leverage point that you have to change is completely internal. It's completely between you and your ghosts. And that work is a lifetime's work. Back in the day, 20, 30 years ago, people associated therapy with problems. They would say, well, I need to go see a therapist because I'm having this problem. For folks who go to therapy these days, that might sound crazy, right? That's not how we think of therapy anymore, most people. Most people think of therapy now as like, oh, I get to work on myself, I'm working on my relationships, I'm working on being a better partner, better parent, better whatever the thing is. We see it as a positive. We see it as additive to our life, not as an intervention to solve a crisis, although it can also be that as well. And it's the same thing with working on your own authority. It's not, oh, I'm so bad because I want to be like my dad and I want to impress him and I feel like I can never, do what he wants me to do in the way he wants me to do it, and I got to get rid of that problem. That's not the right way to think about it. The way you want to think about it is, oh, what an amazing thing I can learn about myself that I didn't realize before. Like my friend I was talking to the other day who said, oh, I didn't realize the degree to which other people were seeing that I was trying to be like my former boss. And I don't have my own style. I don't have my own voice. That's amazing. He's going to be working on that for the next 25 years. That's great. It's not a problem to get rid of. It's a question to live into. And it's a subject that, for whatever reason, when I wrote Good Authority, this was back almost 10 years ago. We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the publishing of Good Authority. At the time when I wrote that book, I said, surely somebody has talked about this before. And there must be 100 books about authority and our inner psychology and our obstacles to being authority. Somebody must have talked about this before, and nobody had. I was shocked. I mean, I was delighted because I got to write a book about something that was new, to talk about authority, and we never talk about it. You never see L&D programs, HR programs. Hey, everybody, Everyone in the organization, especially the leaders in this organization, we're going to spend the next 9 months working out our authority issues. Has anyone ever seen a program like that? You haven't. Unless maybe you worked with Refound at some point. It's, for whatever reason, a taboo. We're not supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to assume that the leaders in our organization, whether there's 100 managers or 10,000, that these people have done that work, I guess, that they know who they are, that they've worked out their authority baggage with their parents and important figures of their life, and they've undone all of their conditioning, and so they're clear and open to be able to lead and manage others. It's an insane assumption, but that's the one we're making up to this point. So this work has huge implications for the future of work, for why people struggle so much, why people always complain rightfully about their manager, why they leave companies because of their manager, not because of the company, not because of the mission. The data is clear. It's been clear for decades. People leave because of their manager. Well, why do they leave because of their manager? Because their manager isn't invested in their growth, because they don't feel like their manager cares about them, because they don't feel like their manager is advocating in the right way, and on and on and on. Well, why isn't the manager doing that? Because the manager hasn't done the work on themselves to be clear and open. And then that manager, good person that they are, is in the middle of a complex, toxic, dysfunctional organization that makes it nearly impossible to do the right thing by people in the right way, in the right moments. So you have this cocktail, this mix of factors that makes it nearly impossible. And we're not doing the one thing that we actually need to do, which is to talk openly about authority, to talk openly about the ways in which we are not ourselves, instead of introducing this nonsense around, well, bring your whole self to work, or, be true, be honest. Like, you can't. No one can do that. It's a stupid and foolish ask to tell people to bring their whole self to work. The honest, sober thing is bring whoever you are to work, and we'll work on that. And that's what working on your ghosts is all about, is, first of all, accepting that you have them. Doesn't make you a bad person. You shouldn't feel ashamed to have them. You have them. I have them. We all have them. There is no perfect, unflawed person among us. And that's the work of being an authority, a good authority, is to look for the ways, look for the ghosts, look for the conditioning, look for the things that we say. We're like, wait, why did I say it like that? Why am I so frustrated with this person? Why am I so disconnected from this situation? Why am I always trying to please people? Why am I always trying to drive people into the ground? Why am I always arguing with people? Why do I always think that I don't get my way? Why do I always think that the problems are outside of myself instead of inside of myself? I promise you, every single one of those questions that you have in your head relates to one of your ghosts. So I invite you into that work. Start to inventory, look through your day, look for the weird things that happen. And I'll give you a great example to wrap up today. I was talking with another colleague, and he said something great. This is a great exercise that you can do. He happens to work from home. And his partner made an observation, and she shared it with him. She said, can I tell you something? When you're on the phone with these people in these types of work, you talk totally differently with them than you do with these people over here. Every time I can tell, I know who you're talking to. When I walk by the kitchen, I know exactly who you're talking to by your tone of voice and your energy. And we talked about it. I said, what an amazing piece of data to get. Wait, I wonder why that is. I wonder what my triggers are. I wonder why I'm showing up in these relationships this way and in those relationships the other. That's the inquiry. That's the space of growth. That's the space of development. And you don't have to have a team to figure that out. Just look around your life and start to find the ways. Look for where do you tense up? Where do you get too controlling? Where do you get angry? Where do you get triggered? Where do you get overconfident? Where do you feel like, oh yeah, I'm the best at this? Those are all doorways in to looking for your ghosts. And this is the work that will 100% guaranteed not just change your work, but will change your life. You will feel unclouded, unrestricted. You'll be able to move through your world no matter how stressful it is, no matter how complex it is, no matter how big the challenge is. You'll be able to move through your world with grace because you'll have yourself fully online instead of having little pieces of you always trying to manage every situation and trying to please those ghosts. I'll leave you with one of my favorite phrases that I put in the book as well from Feldenkrais, old school, amazing teacher and thinker about human development, especially from the physical and the somatic body-based awareness. And he said, you can't put something down until you realize you're holding it. And that's how it is with ghosts. For as long as we don't see them, for as long as we don't acknowledge them, we can't actually let them go. For as long as we want to hold on to the belief, oh, not me, I don't have that problem. I'm authentic. I'm myself. I know myself. For as long as we persist in that arrogance, our ghosts win because they're running the show and we've fooled ourselves into believing that they're not even there. That's the work. That's the work of a lifetime. And I'd love to hear from you as you embark on this. Maybe you know who one of your ghosts is now. It's great. I'd love to find out who that is. Drop me a note. Maybe you have a ghost and you're not sure what to do about it. How do I interact with this? How do I do this differently? That's great too. Drop me a note. I'll send you some thoughts. Don't judge yourself. Don't go into a place of darkness around this. It's not about that. It's about the journey of self-discovery always. And it is always between you. And you're going to use your external world as the learning ground. Your work, your relationships, your health, your wellness, your finances, whatever's going on outside of you, that's your doorway in to see how you may be operating in a way that isn't the authentic self, that isn't who you want to be. Thanks for listening.